We may have lost a little bit of the kudos since the 80s or the 90s. I think that there's a lot of stuff that's come in that, has kind of reduced our kind of value, I guess, perceived value. And friends and family have said to me, well, there's other things, get a real job. If you've got aspirations of becoming a big business, then while you're small, behave like a big business. Think like one, act like one, surround yourself with the people that will help you be one, and get all the little bits and pieces of that jigsaw that you would see a big business would have.
Hello and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding and life from the Horizon Digital podcast recording studio here in Perth. I'm your host Tracy Fryer, the founder of Design Studio Perth, and to celebrate the launch of Season 2 of the show, Design Studio Perth is offering all our listeners a free brand discovery. So if you find yourself frustrated with your current brand and you aren't too sure where to go next, use the link in the show notes below to book in a time to have a chat. Now, the Real Biz Life Chronicles is on a mission to become one of Australia's leading business podcasts, but in order to do that, we please need your help. If you do enjoy today's episode, we please ask that you like and subscribe to our channels below, or simply share this episode with a fellow business owner who is doing one of the hardest things in the world, building a business. Now, I don't know about you, but the best conversations are always had over a great cup of coffee. And so the coffee for each episode of the Real Biz Life Chronicles is sponsored by the legends from Cuppa Cartel. They're fueling great conversations, one cuppa at a time. You can check them out in the link in the show notes below. They offer a full coffee valet service for you and your crew at the office. My guest today doesn't seek the spotlight, but his work speaks volumes. He's the kind of designer who sees what others miss. With a career spanning over 40 years, he's a formally trained creative who has shaped brands both in Australia and across Asia. He's worked in some of the largest design studios and global agencies, helping shape the identities of major international brands. Now, as design partner at the Pink Elephant Branding and Design, he brings a legacy of branding wisdom and design precision to every project. Ask anyone who knows him and they'll tell you creative, genuine, and understated. He probably wouldn't tell you this himself, but he's the kind of designer who pours his heart and soul into everything he creates. He lifts others up, but never himself. What you won't find on his LinkedIn profile is the countless hours poured into caring for his wife and daughters, quietly sacrificing time, energy, and opportunity to keep his family at the center of everything that he does. This episode is a deep dive into the quiet power of branding, the craft behind great design, and how to build visual identities that last. Lino Giangiordano, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tracy. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm so looking forward to our chat today. As a fellow branding expert, I know we're going to have a great conversation and add so much value to the audience and especially the business owners and how they can really leverage their brand to grow their business. But firstly, you've been described as creative, genuine, and understated. Which of those words feel most true to you, and which one do you wrestle with?
Okay, I suppose that creative thing is the one I wrestle with the most. I like to think that I solve problems, albeit visual problems, but they're challenges that other people have, and I've learned through that formal training and through experience how to tackle them best and how to deliver, solutions that are tailored, are bespoke as much as possible, that take on that challenge and offer the best solution for it. So I can't remember what the other two were. There was
you've been described as creative, genuine, and understated.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess understated is where I like to be. I don't like to play the show pony, and I just want to do what I do best, apply the craft as I know it can be done. Hopefully people see ultimately that the way that we solve those problems is done in a creative way.
And take us back. Where did your design career start?
Oh, okay. We're going back nigh on 40 years here.
Great.
Tracy.
Love it. Go for it.
Well, I grew up in Perth and studied at a high school locally, and then was actually through the guidance of that art teacher that I ended up doing the graphic design course and not the fine art course, which is what I thought I needed to
good call.
do.
I did the other one, the fine art one.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Well, it had the word art in it. So she said, albeit, but what you want is this graphic. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what design meant in that context. I just assumed it was something to do with interiors or architecture, whatever. So I was already on the wrong track. But she helped me out, and I got into what was then weight. So again, 40 years ago. Did the 3-year course, and before I'd even finished, I was working. One of the tutors that took both second and third year short courses saw something that I could solve some problems.
Great.
And he said, look, would you like to come and work in a small advertising agency? He and his partner and their partner in business had going, and literally moved into this office. We built a desk out of trestles and an old door.
Yeah.
Back in the day, before any computers were our friends, had a T-square, set square, all that stuff.
Wow.
Oh yeah, ink pens, and that's how it all began. And but once I got led onto the path of what the difference was between fine art, there's nothing wrong with it, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do really, and design. And once I figured out in second and third year that there was this little niche called graphic design, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah. And I know, like art, there's a great history around graphic design. So walk us through how would you go from concept to design? There was a lot of hand sketching. You'd obviously design by hand, render it.
Yeah, I mean, again, because I graduated and worked a few years before there were any, Apple or Macintosh computers or before computer-aided design for us, it was all that. It was bits of paper. You got your pens, you got your eraser if you needed them, and just kept drawing until ideas started to crystallize a little bit. And then you had to use the tools of the day, which were things like Letraset, Pantone. So there was forever trips to Jackson's Art Supplies and back.
Oh, yeah. Popular one.
When you're a student, that's no small expense. So, part-time job was necessary. But it was, I'm not going to say it was the good old days, but it was just what they were. But you did learn some handicraft. I mean, the precision. And there were some amazing people that I learned all of these different kinds of things from. Kevin Stevens was one in one of the studios that we worked with. He was a production artist, and I've never known anyone like it since.
Yeah.
The things that he taught us, the ability that he had to draw things from scratch.
Amazing.
And they kind of started to rub off on me a little bit, which was very good. And so, yes, I mean, so I learned good habits, which I then took into then using an Apple computer later on in the early 90s. So those good habits stayed. And to this day, I still, keep a pencil sharp, scalpel handy.
Yes.
All of that sort of stuff. Because I still like drawing ideas. You can't do it quickly enough.
Same.
On a Mac.
No.
It's as simple as that. So you sketch out all your ideas, as ludicrous as they might be. And in fact, one of the teachers that had us at Curtin, when I went to work for him before I graduated, we worked on projects together, and he asked me to take some reproductive images, like using an old bromide machine and an enlarger, of his drawings, and his drawings were stunning. He was a great illustrator, but he kept all the mistakes, I'm going to call them, and he said, leave them in. Yeah. Don't erase anything. So I photographed this thing. It had the main drawing, and you could see all the lead up sketches behind it, the stuff that he wanted me to erase, because he said that's what gives this some soul. That's what gives it a bit of body and some guts, And I went, there's a concept.
Yeah.
So, I've learned from that to those are your workings out, but there's nothing wrong with showing some of those workings out. Or if they end up in a final product, maybe add them as an embellishment or a little bit of wit or a little bit of sense of humour, which is what I love to do in work.
And have you always been a creative, Lino?
If you mean, have I done anything else? No.
Yeah, like your whole life, because I've been drawing since I was 2. So
yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, my kids have found exercise books from when I was 8 or 9 years old.
Cool. Yeah.
With just drawings, doodles, sketches. In 77, I think when Star Wars came out, I was absolutely gobsmacked by that whole world.
Yes.
So I spent the next bunch of months drawing characters and the X-wing fighters and everything else. Cool. And they discovered it and went, "Wow, Dad, you could draw." And I went,
Yeah.
Once upon a time.
Do you still draw now?
Not as much. Not as much. Not as much. No, I don't. I mean, I've done sketches of things like, I did a sketch of our own dog.
Cool.
So I tried to bring back some of those long lost skills. They resurfaced well enough.
Did they?
Yeah. I mean, it was a good enough drawing of the dog.
Yeah.
And Lisa, my wife, loved it so much she wanted it framed, so I framed it for her.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, I haven't drawn in quite some time, so I normally draw portraits.
Yeah.
And I guess, there's only 24 hours in a day, but it's probably been about maybe 2 years since I last did a drawing. So, but it's amazing when you get back into it, like your brain just remembers and off you go, right?
And I think it's, to a large degree, therapeutic. I mean, it's better than always watching YouTube, better than always watching TV or, I read a little bit. We watch some shows together with the kids and the family. But to have that alone time where you just sit and you are completely absorbed by putting lead onto paper is good for you.
And, Lino, that precision, did you say, it sounds like you've got that precision in your work. Do you feel that comes from that hand rendering that you did straight off the bat?
I believe so. I mean, case in point, I'm designing logos even in the last week or so where, you think you've got it down and, it looks good. You put the typography next to the shape you've drawn, the symbol. But that legacy of going back and revisiting and recrafting and repolishing and make it is what I keep doing.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you arrive at a suite of logos, for example, or a diagram, or that is as good as you can possibly make it. And the client's been happy with it about 4 iterations before, but you just keep going until you're happy with it. And that, I follow there's a YouTube channel called Mock Hero. Okay. And it's a graphic design, and they speak to illustrators. And one of my all-time heroes, Saul Bass, says exactly that. He said, the aesthetics are your problem. You take it to the point where you're happy with it, because the client's not interested. Once you've solved the problem to a large degree, they're happy with it. You invoice them, but you keep going until you're happy with it. And that's, I think, a legacy of that training that I had through Wait, and then that apprenticeship that I did with certain graphic designers. And that's a habit that I've developed, and I can't get rid of it, thankfully.
And was there ever a time you wanted to give up on your creative career?
No, not really.
Yeah.
No, people have said to me, because arguably, there's we may have lost a little bit of the kudos since the 80s or the 90s. I think that there's a lot of stuff that's come in that has kind of reduced our kind of value, I guess, perceived value. But and friends and family have said to me, well, there's other things, get a real job, or something else, go where the money's at. And I went, well, that's all well and good, but I've seen people go where the money's at and then withdraw because it's not what they wanted to do.
Totally.
So no, I appreciate stuff that's around the periphery of graphic design. I love illustration. I like interior design. I follow architects, so YouTubers, podcasters, all that.
Yeah.
I think that creative brain, that mindset, is something that is either with you and you got it for life, or you were never meant to do it in the first place.
So true. I've had moments where I thought, because I did fine arts first, then I changed to visual arts in my degree. And I still remember when I finished school, they were like, you've got graphic design or visual arts. And I had this thing I was going to go be a famous artist. I didn't know you had to die before that happens.
Yeah.
So when I moved to Perth, did my graphic design diploma at TAFE and then kind of went from there. But there's often been times I'm like, should I maybe have gone and done law or something along those lines? But it's in my blood. And I think if I'd gone and done a different path, it just would never have worked for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, whether this left brain, right brain thing is absolutely real. But I think, if your passion is to litigate, then that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
If your passion is to, and I use that word reservedly, but if you're driven to be something in the healthcare industry, then that's what you're going to do. My wife is an example of that, where she discovered that she wanted to be a nurse when her grandmum passed away.
Wow.
She came home and went, literally, I need to help. I need to be a nurse.
Yeah.
And then set about becoming a nurse.
So quite a bit later in her life?
Yeah, mid-20s.
Yeah.
Mid-20s.
Yeah, because it's funny, you kind of think you're going to go to school, study, and that's the thing that you're staying forever, but it doesn't work out that way.
No, and I think more and more it's less of that linear solution where you go, you're good at maths, so you become an engineer, or you're good at, biology, so you go into medicine. You're allowed to change.
Yeah.
And I think the opportunities now are more like that. When I was at high school, you were smart enough to do maths 2 and 3, physics and chemistry, or you were plan B. You did maybe biology, a lower grade of maths, and art, like I did.
Yeah, same. Biology and art.
Yeah, exactly. So the pathways were fewer, and they were, deeper grooves. You either were in that groove or you're in a different groove. Whereas these days you can get into a different groove.
Yeah.
Chop and change.
Lino, one of the reasons I was looking so forward to having this conversation is to chat about branding. So I thought it'd be great for our audience to hear it from someone else other than me. And I know with your experience and your expertise and having worked with some major global brands, perhaps we could open that conversation and, educate business owners how they can really use branding as a tool. Because I find, I don't know about you, but a lot of business owners seem to think just a logo, just a generic logo is their brand when it's not, and I am generalizing. For you, I'd love to know, what is branding?
Well, let's start with it isn't. That concept of the logo, for me, the word branding, unless it's burned onto a cow's bum, that's not a brand, right? It's that's what they used to call a brand, and it was a branding iron. But I started to hear this terminology in about 93 or 4. I was working in an agency in Singapore, and they was a big agency, so they had the resources to have people that were specialists in whatever field, and they had someone that came along and started talking to us about both brand science and brand art, and I went, "What is that?" I know the word art, and I know the word science. Why have they put the word brand in front of it? But what it was that they, the brand science was obviously the more analytical side of things, drawing data from clients to get their insights into their businesses and what made them tick, why they started what they did in the first place. And so conversely then, the brand art was taking that information, those insights from within the client's own perspective, and then applying a veneer, if you like, but not just, a veneer in so much as a skin. It had to come from that data. So it was more bespoke. It was a more bespoke solution. And this was a little bit before the web really took off, but obviously there was all the logo was key. That seemed to be the cornerstone. And from that would spring the visual identity system, which incorporated, the colors, the fonts involved. But it also started to talk about the mood of the text, the voice of that company, the way they spoke. So if it was a casual company, that's the way that the text was written in their ads, on their website, in a brochure. Yeah. If it was a more formal one, then obviously that would move over. Largely in the way you would tell ChatGPT to do that for you today. Yeah. We'd figure it out ourselves. Yeah. So then when you put at least the visual things together, whether we had brochures, whether we had small ads, whether it was billboards back in the day, when you all put that on the table and had to look at it, and you had to analytically and critically look at it and go, does this look like a brand? Does this look like it's uniform? Yeah. Does one sound, look, read like the other? And if there were any clangers, if anything wasn't, then you had to readdress that issue to bring it back into what was ostensibly the correct brand voice or the brand art. Yeah. And that went on whether it was even radio. So if there was the spoken word, you had to choose the right talent or get the client to speak for themselves or write in accordance with that brand. So for me, it was all the different touch points. And I've stuck with the graphic design part of things. Yes. But I've also had to teach myself that graphic design now is much more than just a logo put into print. It is everything electronic as well as everything hard copy. Yes. And that also needs to make sense.
It's I try to distill it down to like 3 core pillars, right? So you've got, whilst it's a pairing of various things, it's like your words, your visual identity, which is your logo, your colors, your fonts, and the brand media. And you really need those 3 aligned with your ideal client. Who is it that you serve? Yeah. And then you go and build out your website, your general graphic design, copywriting, and so on. It's Yeah, I often get that. Oh, I've got my logo, I've got my brand, but it's so much, there's all those different touch points that come with that as well.
It's a good start. If they've allowed you to develop a logo for them, that makes perfect sense. And like I said earlier, if they're happy with it and you're happy with it, it's logical. And it's a piece, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's got to look great. Then they're off to a good start. But certainly, after that is where it really does the heavy lifting. If it's the kind of thing that should appear on the side of a car, then that's where it's got to go.
Yeah.
If it's more of a haute couture kind of business, then you'd think there are some places it shouldn't appear, like on a street sign or anything like that. So, and that's where I think we need to use our logical brain and go, well, these are the places you should be seen and or heard, but you should avoid those because they don't make sense to your brand. So you can't be a high cost, high value brand and yet have a sticker on the side of a cheap car. You know what I mean?
Completely. Yeah, it's misaligned.
Precisely.
And I'd love to speak to the power of a brand style guide because, again, I come across so many business owners. They have a logo and then, whoever works with it adds their own version of purple and someone else down the road adds their version of green and purple and it just becomes an absolute mess. Please walk us through that.
Sure. And it's fresh in my mind because I finished one just yesterday.
Oh, great.
For our friend Jeff Robson.
Ah.
Yeah, so it is a valuable document, and that's also what came out of my period in Singapore. I think that from there on in, because before that I was working as a pretty much a junior designer, and other people did that ahead of me, but I saw them being built and I thought, wow, that's quite the tome, quite a volume, and it had value to it because, and it's not just a value of like, that's a pretty thing to own to have on the shelf. When a company builds itself up and wants to sell to a much bigger group, wants to absorb it, they're not just buying the personnel and all the people that built that company, they're buying the entity.
Yeah.
And a part of that entity is that guideline, and it's got a monetary value. It's an intrinsically valuable thing that you're buying. You're buying the systems because you may move premises, so the building's worth nothing.
Yeah.
The people might leave, so they're not really worth anything to the buyers. But what is left behind is the brand, its perceived value in the marketplace, and some sort of guidance, which is that brand tome, that standards guideline, which they can pass on to the next person to be its custodian and make sure it stays on track.
Great point.
Whether it's a 2-pager or whether it's volumes or it's a set of 6 ring binders or whatever,
They're very extensive.
I've seen them.
Same.
I've seen them. BMW have got literally it's the law library.
Really?
Yeah. Because they've covered every single thing.
Yeah.
Everything that gets designed then gets put into its relevant section in the right volume of that, encyclopedia that is this brand standards guideline. There are lesser. You don't always need them all the time. But, for the agency that I worked at, it was called Dentsu Young and Rubicam, so DYNR.
Yeah.
They rebranded and they wanted to do a whole new standards guideline. So it was left to me.
Wow, what a project to be involved in. Gee.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great. And it was, I was pretty much alone. But I had to do a full audit, had to go interview every single department and say, what do you use? What do you want to get rid of? What needs fixing? And we had to design. And so it had to be designed for a start. Everything from tape cassette covers.
Oh my goodness.
To CD. Yeah, everything. Business cards, the whole thing. To the point where even the volume itself was a nice thing because we had the luxury of financial resources. This was a pretty big group.
Yeah, great.
So the actual standards guideline itself is a lovely thing to hold.
Definitely.
But and stayed with them. I've got one copy myself.
Gee, that would have been amazing to be a part of that.
It was months of work.
Yeah.
And the pressure was on because we did have a launch for Southeast Asia. So we had 11 agencies across the group that we had a gathering for, and this whole thing was launched. So that was pretty big.
Yeah. I guess for the business owner listening, they might be thinking, well, why bother? I'm just a small, fish in the sea. What would your advice to them be there, Lino?
Look, even DYNR started small, right? If you got aspirations of becoming a big business, then while you're small, behave like a big business. Think like one, act like one, surround yourself with the people that will help you be one, and get all the little bits and pieces of that jigsaw that you would see a big business would have. So, don't design your own logo, for
Please
example.
don't.
Get someone who will sit with you, listen to what your needs are, what your wishes are, what your vision is. Put that down, and take all the steps that you need to be that big business in the near or maybe a distant future. So that'll be it. Like, think like a big business if you want to be one.
Where else do you see business owners go wrong when it comes to their, their branding, their graphic design?
Perhaps losing a bit of momentum. Jobs seem to be really quite finite. There's an urgency about, the logo. There's an urgency about, where it needs to go. And it's often these days the website. And then it just seems to trail off into nothing.
Yeah.
You need to keep talking to your audience, whether it's using social media exclusively or it's in combination with some printed material or the office end or dwelling that you operate from. So things like signage, consider it. Social media, when you post branded proper posting. And I know I'm preaching to the converted here, but that needs to make sense.
Totally.
If you utter a word, it needs to be on brand. If you show a thing, that needs to be in accordance with that brand. The minute you are silent, or the minute you say something that's off kilter, the audience notices.
They do.
They kind of go, oh, that's an odd thing to say, or that video doesn't make sense to me according to all the other videos that I've seen. So the advice would be is just don't stop, but keep reassessing, keep reanalyzing, keep checking in with yourself. I'm talking businesses, that you are saying the right things and continue to do so. Awareness is everything. If you stop talking or you stop being in the marketplace, stop talking to your subscribers or audience or customers or clients or whatever, they're too busy. They're going to forget. So keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, great advice. I think I read the other day, we're bombarded with 6,500 to 10,000 different messages and visuals every single day. And another thing it highlighted is whilst your audience might not engage or like or comment, they actually do watch in the background. And I've experienced this in my own business, and it's just that consistency of consistently showing up. And I find a lot of business owners have that haphazard approach where they solid for maybe 2 months, then they fall off the wagon for 6 months, and then they wonder why they're not getting that traction that they're hoping for.
Yeah, look, I mean, ask the likes of the good guys or Harvey Norman or whatever. I mean, they advertise, whether we watch TV or not, but they are still everywhere, and they've adapted. Even if they're not on commercial TV, they've adapted. They're on YouTube. They're on, they appear where they need to appear, where they know their audiences are, and they haven't stopped. Because you're right, when the day arrives finally that you need to buy a new fridge, and a Good Guys ad pops up, where are you going to go?
Good Guys.
Yeah, I mean, because they were first, they were in,
Yeah.
So you're right. Even though you're not making a sale, or the graph on your whatever analytics that you're using
Googles,
doesn't spike, or trend upwards perpetually, people are still paying attention. You might see a drop if you say the wrong thing or you don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
So once you think your brand is established, you need to keep talking, keep showing people things.
Completely. And I experienced this with my own business. We had a prospect follow us for 6 months, never engaged, never reached out, never commented. And one day got a call. They were coming from over east and wanted to meet. They're now one of our biggest clients. So I would have, and it's kind of also those moments where I think, oh my gosh, like I'm doing all these things, nothing's happening, but people do watch, right?
Yeah, look, it's a habit. It's just develop the habit and keep doing it. Build it into your week, put it in your diary, whatever you need to do. Like you brush your teeth, like you go to the gym, or all the things that are good for you. Keep doing them, because that's a habit that it's good to have. And you'll attract the right kinds of people. They'll come to you because they see you as this consistent metronome of a entity, person that, doesn't miss a beat. And then they'll go, that's the one I want to talk to.
Yeah.
In the same way that people buy cars, maybe they go, well, that mark has never done anything that I would sing is a clanger of a car. I will buy into their ecosystem of vehicles because I know I won't go wrong.
Yeah.
There's a level of trust, I suppose.
Definitely. And Lino, what do you feel in your experience makes a brand truly unforgettable?
Well, I suppose the biggest one is relevance. You know, if a brand remains, well, honest, you know, if they're honest, if they are true to themselves first and foremost, people will see that over the span of time. And if it's something they need to tap into at some point, that brand will be the one that they go to. That's the one that sparkles in their mind and go, I need what they have, or I want to be associated with what they've got. Standing out is really difficult. I mean, because it's a timing thing, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, if someone's in the market for a piece of jewelry or a bit of camera gear or whatever, then they'll quickly sift through all the noise and go to the brand that is relevant, has an honest message, and has a great reputation. That wasn't sort of there yesterday and gone tomorrow, or, you know, has so many options that they can't choose from. Again, it's the message. If it's clear and people are in the market for a particular thing at a particular time, then that brand will stand out. Or those brands will stand out.
And I guess the other side of that is, what do you feel makes a unique creative? Like, what does a great graphic designer look like?
This.
Yeah, there you go. And this side as well.
Exactly. So, look, we'll come all shapes and forms, I guess, you know. But I suppose it's again, even for us, it's that honesty. You know, if we have those not tough conversations, what we do isn't tough, but you do have to be able to distill down through the noise of what even your clients are trying to tell you, because they kind of often do like a mind dump and go, this is everything that's on my mind. Can you make it look good? So a great graphic designer is a good thinker. You know, I think there's someone that can kind of see the wheat through the chaff, you know, come up with a solution. And then our role is to add some value. Our role is to then go, okay, you can do the also-ran stuff. I can do the Me Too, or I can push a little harder and see if I can come up with a bit of wit, or a bit of cleverness, or and obviously we have to add our crafts. So, you know, it is beholden on us to do the best crafting of that solution that we can. Whether it's a logo, whether it's the design of a poster, whether it's a standards guideline, or whether it's a bit of jewelry, you need to put heart and soul into it. Because, like, again, Saul Bass said, they don't care anymore.
Yeah.
You know, they've got their solution. They're more than happy. But it's incumbent on us to just to go above and beyond. But that's what fuels us. That's what keeps me going for the next one.
Same. And for those creatives that are thinking of starting their own business, what would your advice be there? Because I know sometimes creatives, we're a bit free-spirited, we tend to do our own thing, and then the idea of a business, you know, we kind of dabble. I've dabbled and I've, you know, given it a full run, which is great. What would your advice be to a creative that is thinking of starting their own business?
All right. If you're an avid footballer and you think you've got talent, the best place for you to go is a club with a great coach. So if you want to be a graphic designer or open up a graphic design business, find a good coach, you know. I think because that's a different mindset for us.
Yeah,
you know, if we're going to speak specifically about designers, whether it's fashion, graphics, illustration, you know, whatever, interior. If you want to build a business, then you need to know how to do that, or go to management school or go to business school or something like that. You need to learn those skills, just as you learn the skills that you have as a graphic designer or illustrator or architect. You know, it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. Because it's a different thing. You're dealing with income and cash flow and taxes.
So
and,
different.
You know, where you're going to work from and how much is it going to cost you, and all those kinds of things that you don't think about generally when you come out of art school of any type.
No.
So get a coach.
Great advice. Can you share a time when a brand transformation had a tangible impact on a business's success?
That's a good one, because I don't often get a lot of feedback, actually, which is a shame. Look, I suppose, and you know Jeff Robson, right?
Yes, that's what I was thinking of when actually
yeah. Well, you know, he's a self-made genius, but, you know, look, I've known Jeff 25 years. Let's start there. So when I met him, he was working at another business, and then soon afterwards he started his new thing called Mail Barrow, which is basically around bulk email sending and that kind of thing, way before the likes of MailChimp, but that sort of crew. But after that, so that evolved, and we knew each other, and we did some things together, and so we were doing little bits and bobs around that brand. But he kind of evolved from there quite quickly and began this other business called Access Analytic, which a lot of people might know about now. But he trusted me with that logo and that brand building, and I'm to this day still that, I'm going to say, custodian, still the brand manager for that company. And I think that, look, I can't say that it was exactly the reason for it, but I think it didn't do any harm in him evolving and relaunching and moving up a few rungs in business. And he was a smart guy too. He got that business coach. So he was working in two grooves, doing what he was doing, learning how to run a business better, and then trusting me with making it look good at every turn. So I think that was one that, and again, how long has that been? I think that's nigh on 21 years old, that business, or a little bit older.
It's quite a while, yeah. Yeah, he was on the podcast as well. Yeah.
So I think it's the 25th anniversary of both Access Analytic combined with Marlborough. So a quarter of a century is not bad going.
No, and I think you've highlighted something else that's really important there. Like, it goes beyond just giving a graphic designer a project and then see you later. It's that long-term relationship that you build with a business owner. And then as you navigate that business journey, like you've got each other's back, and that you're helping that business owner show up in the marketplace in their best way.
Yep. Those are the kind of clients, again, in business, I would rather have 3 long-term loyal customers that we work alongside with than be told what to do by 50 different clients,
Completely.
And micromanage, and then kind of be discarded when we're not needed anymore.
Yeah.
Because that is too short term, and it's not where I want to, it's not the field I want to play on at this point in my career. I'd rather have, like I say, a handful of long-term trusting and trusted clients that we have a relationship with, that they want to meet, to make, even if it's just a checking point to go, what do you think about this?
Yes.
That would do nicely.
I think you mentioned earlier, like a brand custodian, you kind of, you're guiding that person, they're thinking about, doing X, Y, and Z, and it's great to bounce ideas off each other. Yeah,
because, I don't profess to know it all.
Yeah, same.
If they have an idea about something, it's usually generated within their business, and they use it as a sounding board sometimes. And then, if we have to deliver something that needs a bit of a visual solution or deliverable in one way or another, then they'll give me that brief and we get on with it.
Yeah. And what role do you think emotion plays in design?
Well, it's part and parcel. It's not everything. I'm not out to make people cry.
No.
But
feel good too.
but certainly, I think that again, a bit of sense of humour. There's no harm. If you can put a smile on their mind. I've got a whole book titled "A Smile in the Mind."
Oh, great!
And it is graphic design and illustration and ads through the, I think, 70s and 80s. That's where they've collected them from. Which you look at them and go, well, that's very clever. That's funny, or that just simply makes me happy to look at that thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. I think, as an example, I've done annual reports for this company called Working Systems, and then they became Global Health. And an annual report is a dry document, right?
Yep.
I've tried to, and they're getting drier. But while I had an opportunity, we did both photographic solutions, and what I did in about 5 or 6 years, because I did that annual report for 17 years in a row.
Gee.
But only for about 5 or 6 of them I got away with this one, where I put a little drawn animation in the bottom corner of each page.
Yeah.
So you could flick through the paper and you would have a little bouncing ball or a stick figure or something would happen in. So when I showed that to my clients, I put a smile in their mind.
Yeah.
They went, because they didn't see that at the very beginning. And in fact, I didn't point it out. I just showed it to them when the books were delivered.
Yeah.
They went, did you notice this? And they went, what? And they flicked the pages. So above the page folio, you'd have a little bouncing or moving animation. And I thought, well, I got a kick out of doing the annual report because it wasn't just a boring annual report. And they got a kick of it ultimately because they saw it. And it was just that little bit of extra that I quite like. So
yeah, a bit of fun.
Emotion, humour, those things play a part. Why not?
And it sounds like you've really nailed it down in terms of having those long-term relationships with your clients, because some designers tend to jump around. Yeah. What do you believe is the key to that success?
Again, just simply being yourself and being an honest person, being integral, and not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes, or not trying to, fleece them financially because they happen to be able to pay for something. It is a case of horses for courses. And if you want to stay in the game a long time, I'm not saying be cheap. I'm just saying, in terms of that, charge a fair price. Put a value on your work, but be honest about it. That and the work itself. If you think that, and voice your opinion, because that's kind of what they're after, really.
Yeah.
If they're after your insights, your value add. Why do you think it should be blue and not orange? Then you tell them why you think it's ludicrous to be blue and not orange, or to have a font that's got serifs that are massive on it or none at all. Tell them, give them the fruit of your knowledge. Let them know why, and you'll find that they go, okay, that's more than solve the problem. I'll ask another. Give them another challenge, and then on it goes. So I think, as long as you're straight with them, they'll feel comfortable about asking you again and again and again and again.
And Jeff also mentioned that you pour your heart and soul into everything that you do.
Yeah, that's a good or bad trait to do.
I think it's great.
Yeah, look, I do. I mean, because I still, people say, do you still like what you do? 40 years on. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Because you just want to keep doing. It's a personal best thing.
Yeah.
You're not out to beat anybody else. There are people out there that arguably are far better than me. They're 20 years, 30 years younger. They've got a long way to go. But so I'm after improving myself at every turn. And if at that time I'm solving a problem for someone, then that's good. So I do. I kind of give it everything I've got.
Why would that be a bad thing?
It's not.
Oh, good. You mentioned earlier.
No,
I was like, well,
it's not. No,
yeah.
well, look, if you're in it just for the money,
yeah,
then that could turn into a bad thing, because you will spend a lot of extra time, like I do, trying to get it right. Yeah. Because, like, again, you've solved the problem, you've delivered it, you may be about to deliver a job, but are you happy with it? Are you giddily happy with this job? Does it make you smile? Does it make you think, there's nothing else I could do? This is as good as it's going to get. If you haven't, keep going, but that's going to take you time. And that may be well beyond the budget. So if you're just in it for the money, then putting your heart and soul into absolutely everything might not be for you.
No. There was a question that Jeff actually asked me, and I'd love to ask you the same. How has business changed you?
It is a self-discovery thing. It has given me, I guess, a sense of confidence, because I've worked for some small groups and I've worked for some big groups, but they are the ocean that you float upon. They give you the life raft. When you work for yourself, you have to make your own life raft.
Completely.
It's all up to you. It's all potential, but you could also sink. So it's given me confidence and a bit of self-belief, I guess, that there's not much that I haven't been able to try and conquer. Like I say, I was working well before the Macintosh days.
Yes. And
people said, "Oh, what are you going to do? The Macintosh is going to put you out of business." No, it was a tool. I learned the tool. And that's held me in good stead for all these years. Now the talk is, the AI thing.
Yes.
That's going to put us out of business. I see it as a tool.
Same.
I think it's a great technological advance. It just depends on how you use it.
Yeah, of course.
To use it at all, or to put your head under the carpet, say it doesn't exist, go la la la, is foolish. But figure out how you want to use it. It's a tool like everything else has been.
Where do you see that going in future, AI?
Look, it's another maelstrom where people have to figure that out for themselves. It's going to get better, whatever better is, but it's going to be because it dips into all of the knowledge that we've already got, right?
Yeah.
So when we're all gone, where's it going to get its past knowledge from? So there'll come a time it'll be like that fork in the road where AI can only look back. It can't create brand new.
Yes.
It can create a new version of what was before. So that's the challenge, to figure out how is this going to impact our business if it can only look backwards. Look, it's a tool. You know, I've collected books in the past. That's kind of like intelligence put into print, right?
Yes.
It's an inspirational thing. So you can use AI and go, this is my challenge. I need to find something in and around this kind of realm. Can you give me some images? Can you give me some words? Can you give me a phrase? Can you give me a drawing or a diagram? How do I? And it's a giant resource. It's a huge library of information, but it doesn't mean that you rely on it as your solution. You should use that content, and that should spur you on to go, oh, okay, I never thought of anything like this before for this in this field. Why don't I try that?
Yeah.
Then you get your pencil out, then you get your paper out, and you start all over again.
Lino, what has been your biggest challenge as a creative business owner?
I didn't get a coach. I should have done.
You didn't?
No.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, for lots of reasons, but I didn't. And so dividing my time, the week, a day, so that I can both do my work, do the admin, and plan for the next thing is still the challenge for me. I know what I like to do.
Yes.
And I'd rather get someone else to do the other stuff, but finding someone who will do the other stuff and be with me as a partner for the long term is a challenge.
So you mean like a business partner, or do you mean like a team member, or?
Well, I suppose specifically to run the business. I mean, word of mouth is the best work that I've ever gotten.
Yeah.
But it's that replenishing of the next word of mouth customer that is difficult. Again, I've had 2 or 3, arguably 4 or 5 that have stuck with me for decades, which is fantastic. But even they run out of things to do at any given time. So you do need a catalogue of other customers that will fill those gaps, and getting them is hard work. And I'm, spread pretty thin.
So I got a coach in my 6 months in. I got a coach, and that sort of helped with the system. So it's great advice that you're giving. Definitely, I'm very much a big advocate for coaching, business advisory. And then what I found, I kind of hit a bit of a ceiling, and now I have an advisor. But especially as a creative, because we're so passionate about what we do and we pour our heart and soul into everything, I find it's really helped me kind of step away a bit from that side, and then obviously grow a team and, help other creatives rise up and, share their talents with business owners to help add value. But it's quite a process. Hey, I've been in the jar a lot and couldn't see the labels. So.
Yeah, I know, right? It is, you do have to pull yourself out of it sometimes and go, look, and have a bit of an umbrella view, a drone's view, if you like, of what the business is doing at the moment, how it's performing. Not just the portfolio of work that you're creating.
Totally.
But where do we go from here? Or are you happy just being a sole trader? Do you want to go into some sort of consultancy role where, firms will book you for a time, or they engage you for a period, and that's the way you want to operate.
Yeah.
So it's a decision you have to make.
That intention.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're on a mission to brand 365 businesses a year, so pressure's on my business advisor to help me get there.
That's a challenge.
Lino, I'd love to know, if your daughters will listen to this episode 10 years from now, what do you hope they take away from it? What would your advice be to them?
Look, it really does distill down to do what you love to do. Do what really lights your fire. Don't think too much about the money or what people are saying, least of all what people are saying, and what trends might say, this is what this job won't be here in 5 years. They don't know. No one really knows. So do what you want to do, girls. And do put your heart and soul into it. Give it your best so that no one can, and not that anyone has to say it to you. You need to be able to say to yourself, I gave it my best. Yeah. In this period of my working life, in this career choice that I've made, I've given everything. And that, if you're a tea lady, if you're the guy that has to clean floors or whatever, do that to the best of your ability. There's no shame in it. Just do the best that you can.
Yeah. Great advice. I had Jim Pittman on the show, the founder of Jim's Group, on the pod, and he said a very similar thing, but also genuinely just caring about people, like that genuine care, and he's just relentless with that. Like that's his core core purpose.
Yeah, you're right. And look, if my wife could dip her oar in this discussion with the daughters,
Yeah.
she'd say the same thing, because she's in a caring industry and she went into it, obviously not for the money,
Yeah.
but because she's a carer and she loves to have happy results. Doesn't always work out that way, but she gives her all with any patient with any degree of illness or discomfort that they might be in. So yeah, caring, giving it your best, having a bit of self-pride, self-respect is what will get you through the long game.
And again, Jeff gave me the insight that you pour a lot of love and energy into your family. What do you do for yourself to recharge?
I two things. I mean, I like all things visual, so I've taken up, I guess, photography is a bit of a hobby. But going to the gym is something that I've resolved. That I used to play lots of different sports when I was younger.
Great.
But now it's a bit more age appropriate that I hit the gym. As long as the weights aren't too heavy.
Yeah.
But so that's what I do. I mean, I read and I see my friends as often as we possibly can. We have cheap and cheerful meals together. We talk the same rubbish every single time.
Nice.
But that's cathartic and therapeutic, and it makes me feel good every time. So it's a combination of those kinds of things. We're not drinkers, we're not big eaters really. When we go, we choose a place, we choose just to be that it's convenient for everyone to turn up. And we turn up and we talk football, soccer, sport usually, how happy the kids are, where they're at the moment. And as an aside, there's food on the table.
Nice.
I take my camera wherever I go, so there might be a picture or two to be had. And then when I can fit in some gym sessions, I'll fit in the gym sessions.
I saw you bought your camera today as well.
Yeah, I know. Like one guy said on YouTube, he said, if I walk down the hall, I got my camera with me.
Great.
So, because you never know.
Yeah, I'm a bit like that with my phone. I think I drive those around me crazy because I'm like a constant tourist.
Yeah. Well, it's for you.
Yeah. And Lino, over your 40-year, career, what is something you're most proud of?
Well, I suppose, the reason that I was in Singapore is a bit of a backstory. I backpacked. I left Perth in 92 and I stayed away for a whole year.
Okay.
But before that, I was doing a bit of a secondment in Singapore in a packaging design studio, and I befriended a lot of those people. And when I finished this year away, I needed money because I'd spent it all. And jokingly, I sent a postcard to say, could do with the job, spend all my money. And they picked me up from the airport as an interim stop before I came back to Perth. And they said, the first words out of his mouth was, were you serious about that job? And I'd forgotten. And he said, no, that thing you said, you want to work in Singapore again? I went, maybe. But I ended up there, spent 6 years. So just the fact that I could uproot myself and live what I thought was 1 year. I thought I'll do a year. I'll make some of that money back, and I'll head back to Perth and carry on with life. 1 year turned into 2, turned into 4, turned into 6. But what I'm proud of, I suppose, is all that I learned in those 6 years. The learning curve was vertical. All this brand science stuff, all this brand art stuff, working in a multidisciplinary design studio attached to an advertising agency in Southeast Asia. That allowed me to travel. It allowed me to do, see customers that I've, would never have dreamed that I could sit in front of boards and present, their annual report or their identity or their whatever, with these serious players. And, it was one of those sink or swim situations, and I swam, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. And how do you stay humble through it all when you've worked with such great, big brands and you've worked with agencies?
Called as humble.
I think it is.
Well, because, again, the reality is that, these are people that I've met that are successful in success terms, far more successful than me. They're CEOs, they're CFOs, they're chairmen of a board or whatever. But, they're still listening to me talk about this particular thing. So that gives me a quiet confidence. And I think that's where I want to be. I'm not a show pony, really. Arguably should be, maybe I'd have more business, I don't know. But I think, that quiet confidence that you get, that you can time and time again deliver a good job and make someone else's problem go away, keeps me grounded.
And what would your advice be to a business owner that knows deep down they've outgrown their, DIY logo from 10 years ago, and they're obviously fearing the workload that's ahead? What would your advice be to them?
Well, I mean, it's not for them to handle on their own for a start. I mean, if you your business is to grow your business, that's your driver, and like us, really requiring or should be searching out the help of a business coach, because that's what they're good at. Go find a graphic designer that fits your bill too. Go find someone that you are happy to sit down and talk to and go, I've seen your website, or I've seen some of your work, or you were referred by this other person. This is what I have ahead of me. Can you help? The answer will usually be yes.
Yeah.
Then you sit down and you draw that roadmap out. You kind of write it down and go, this is the most important. This is for later on. This is for in the distant future. It's not something you need to wear as a burden yourself.
Yeah, and I think a lot of business owners think that way, that they have to try and figure it all out on their own, like me with my account in the beginning.
Well, exactly. And think about it as an investment in your business rather than a cost to it.
Yeah, it's a good reframe.
That's a mistake, I think, that people will make, in that they the question out of their mouth very soon in the piece is, well, how much is this going to cost?
Yes, always.
Well, how much would it cost if you don't do it? These are clients that you may not get because you don't look like you're up to that speed.
Yeah.
We had a case where we were asked to rebrand a business that was surviving or thriving actually on the back of some products, and their business was basically the product names. But they realised that wasn't good enough, because the people that they were now speaking to, the purchase officers and big resources companies, weren't looking for a tub of solvent or whatever.
Yeah.
They wanted to know who the business was that would solve a much bigger problem. So they rebranded, and the logical conversation was, well, you may have a flagship product, but what does it do? What does the business actually do? And we drill down into that and create an identity, which then had its own logo and its own brand. And from that, we put the products in the categories of where they belonged, so that when the purchasing office came along, or they were speaking to this particular business owner, they would say, well, what do you do? Well, this is the business and these are our products.
Yes.
Rather than, we sell this. Who are you? What do you look like? What's your reputation? What's your history? None of that was in existence. So that was a case where that little mind shift put them at the forefront. They were number one choice.
Yeah.
Rather than a product competing against someone else's other product.
And Lino, if you could go back to the very start of your career 40 years ago, what's one bit of advice you give yourself, and why?
I guess to be patient. Keep surrounding yourself by people that are far better than you, because you'll rise. If they're great communicators, you'll learn to be a better communicator. If they're fantastic technicians, whether it's on an artboard or a computer, you'll learn some skills from them too. So it's really that. It's be patient. Surround yourself with people that you see are far better at what you currently are able to do, and learn from them. Stay in the game. Learn from books. Learn from YouTube. Learn from colleagues. Learn from customers, because they got something to say too.
Yes, just constantly consuming content, educating yourself.
Yeah, listen.
Yeah, lifelong
listen
learner.
and learn. It is that. I mean, I've had to. I mean, I've had to learn new skills. I use platforms to build websites. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, couldn't do that. So keeping up, learning, being humble, perhaps. Knowing that there are people out there that are going to race right past you.
Yeah.
But grab a hold. Go along for the ride. You might learn something new.
Lino, thank you so much for today. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Where is the best place for our listeners to go should they wish to connect with you?
Well, speaking of websites, it's soon to come. I mean, I'm having to rebrand my.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, it is. So I'm working on that as it goes.
Great.
So there will be a new website. So watch this space. LinkedIn, I guess, is the place where I've done already have revamped that profile. So if you go to my LinkedIn page, I believe it's my full name, Lino Giangiordano, or Nicolino Giangiordano. speak to Tracy, speak to Jeff Robson.
Yes.
They will point you in the right direction.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time today. Like I said, it was so nice to have that branding and design conversation with someone who completely gets it. And thank you so much for all that you've shared.
Thank you for having me on your show. I hope people have learned something from it. I hope it helps and that design and branding gets back to where it belongs.
I agree. Cheers to that. Thank you, Lino.
Take care, Tracy.